Hey everyone, this is Drew and welcome to Innected. Today we have an interview with Rahul Tarak, who is revolutionizing the future of video editing. Hope you enjoy Rahul's story and let's get right into it. Hello everyone, today we have Rahul Tarak from India, who is the founder and creator of Modfy Video, an in-browser compression tool. Rahul, thank you very much for being on our podcast. Can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience and share what Modfy Video is and what you're trying to solve and build here?
Sure. So I'm Rahul. I'm from India, and we started as this kind of like in-browser technology which allows you to compress and convert video. But I think we have like slowly pivoted from that, and like we're looking to democratize video editing and make something like a Figma for video, make it really easy to get started with video. Lots and lots of people are getting into user-generated video. That's the new trend. Instagram is moving from a picture app to a user-generated video app. Everybody is interested in this space, but like desktop class video editing tools are very difficult to use. If I gave you Premiere Pro and I asked you to do anything with it, if you hadn't used it, I would bet you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. And these tools are quite expensive. Premiere is quite expensive. Final Cut's quite expensive. It also comes with a barrier to entry of a Mac. But we think we can make this much easier, much more simple for people to get started with, people to get into the space. And we can help enable the next million, 10 million creators to get started with video. And that's like the funnel to the rest of the creative economy. And it's kind of where most kids want to be today. So it's definitely an exciting space to be in.
Wow, so it has the same features at Premium or DaVinci, but it's just on the browser, like real time, you're saying, or much more easier to be uploaded?
I think early on we probably wouldn't have feature parity with something like DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro. But the honest truth is most people don't need those kind of features. There are plenty of videos even at the top of YouTube that don't use nearly as many complex features, and they just need much more basic things. So initially it will start as something simple, something that gets the job done, and then it'll slowly move into something that can be that for everybody, be your complete Premiere Pro replacement. But I do think that is in the order of a few years in terms of feature parity with something like Premiere. After all, Premiere has been around for 20, 25 years. So
Wow, so it sounds like you're targeting or you're trying to help more people who are in the beginner space, like who's just beginning, and this is going to be a really easy tool for them to get their YouTube or their video content up.
exactly, that's the idea. It's to like make it really easy to start. And I think there are a lot of like interesting things in the space that are not been tackled in terms of like how how to make it easier for people to get started with video and get into video, and the kind of tooling that like people use in video is not like not comparable to other spaces where it's like much easier to get started. And there are complexities and it is a technical field, but it really shouldn't be this hard, right? And I think it can be much simpler, and that's kind of what we're trying to make.
How did you even come up with this? Like, is this something that you wanted to solve yourself and that's why you came up with it and just said, I'll just build it? Or how did you come up with this?
So I think it came in phases, right? Like this idea didn't come up overnight. It came in like phases. We grew into this idea, but I think like the original version of Modfy, like the in-browser compressor, that kind of got me into Pioneer. That kind of started as something that I wanted. Something that was like, hey, like I know how to edit video, but like I am OS hopping a lot. I'm on Linux a lot, and when I want to do something simple, it's really painful. It's really annoying, and I just wanted something simple, and I was exploring some technology. There was no real company here. It was an open source project I was just hacking at. And I think Pioneer was kind of what changed a lot of that. When I got into Pioneer, there was a much grander ambition, like much more push to like, let's go try something big. Let's try to go with something much bigger. And I think I was scared to really go after this big framing like Figma for video or Final Cut in your browser. So it was in a few stages. It started as a simple tool that I wanted to build. It was not really a company. There was nothing really there. It was just something I was hacking away at. Then that kind of did quite well. It was on front page of Hacker News. It did well, decently well on the product hunt. It was growing, and it was on Pioneer. Like I got into Pioneer, and then kind of rolled into those at that phase, and even through early this year, there's many explorations of like where this could go. And I think this was the thing that I found was most interesting. Like this is the thing that connected with me the most. Because I've been video editing for, I would say, maybe 6, 7 years, 6, 7, 8 years. And like I started when I was a kid, playing with iMovie and like Windows Movie Maker. Windows Movie Maker was terrible, but like iMovie. And it took me years to develop those skills, and then to develop Premiere Pro and After Effects and all these skills. And I think it could be a lot simpler. So it's definitely a need that arises from something that I noticed in like my own experience as like a video editor. And like,
I mean, I think everyone has their unique story on like becoming where they are right now. I mean, if you ask me, I have a story that people will say I'm crazy because my background and what I'm doing is so different. But I love to hear how, like, I'm pretty sure you were a student, you were being educated, you're going through that route. I would say normal route, if you would say that. But then, how did you kind of like start this whole, I'm gonna start my thing. I'm not gonna go to college, go to like a job or stuff like that, but I'm gonna, just build my stuff.
so I also think that decision came incrementally in the same capacity, right? So like I was always interested in entrepreneurship. I was never someone who could sit still and do nothing. I was always interested in doing something. That was through high school. That was through even middle school. I was always running events, doing projects, hosting hackathons, all these kind of things. I could never really sit still. But I do think like when like I went into college and like through the later half of high school, that idea of like let's go do a startup had like somewhat faded into memory. It was not something that I was thinking about in the short. But COVID happened, and again, there was not like a startup kind of thing. It was just like, hey, like let's take the semester off. It wasn't even like let's take a year off or uh, let's take off college. It was like let's take a semester off and let's just build things, random things. And I had a part-time job, and I was doing another fellowship, and I was doing a few other things. And I was working on this, and I was working on a few other projects. And this kind of started doing well, and then Pioneer happened, and then it was like, let's take another semester off. And then we got into a fellowship that gave us a grant to chase this a little bit more, give us some money in the bank to hire a few people, especially in India, decent amount of money to hire a few people, and like let's go a little bit more. So that validates the second semester, and you can slowly like inch away at like, okay, now the third semester is happening, and then the fourth, and then the fifth. So I don't think it was like, and I also think that's like a much easier way of like people are looking to like convince parents or like have this conversation with other people or anything like that. I think it's much easier to say like, let's take a semester off, and then like we'll reassess, and then we'll take another semester off, and then we'll reassess. Instead of trying to say like, let's take let's just not be in college anymore, right? Because that's like a much more radical decision, or like let's not do jobs anymore. And I think like that decision also, when I said it happened in stages, like I got into Pioneer, but I was still like doing part-time jobs till about like February this year. I was even doing a full-time role in December. So I was still experimenting with other things and seeing like where I'd be interested, like where I'd fit, right? So it was just a lot of experimentation to see like uh, what kind of works. And I think like that, like I think that's true for most people. It kind of becomes like this. You take an extended internship or like an extended like your one semester break just becomes like a forever break if things work out.
I mean, when you start something, you kind of have a lot of like hurdles or obstacles to go over, right? Like sometimes it's not gonna work. It seems like, oh, this project's cool, but no one's gonna use it. It's not moving forward, not even baby steps. um, I'm pretty sure you might have been in these situations where it felt like it's not working. um, how did you overcome that, or what do you do? Do you like pivot, or do you keep working on it? Do you find another solution? How do you solve those situations?
So I will answer this question with a caveat that like we are still very early in our journey. So I wouldn't take advice from someone like myself so early in the journey. Like you should really be looking to someone who's like successfully exited or like successfully completed the journey. There's a lot of like startup advice that's like hard, and you have to do those hard things. But I think sometimes we do disregard a little bit of the conventional startup advice, and we say like, hey, this is what is motivating us, and this is what we're enjoying doing. Whether it's like this month it's talking to customers, or this month it's building, or this month it's something else, and we're just going to do that, right? Like we're going to do like whatever is like the most motivating thing right now, and like what's enabling us to keep going, and like what like allows us to keep moving. In terms of like other things, like things are not working. Yeah, I think that always happens, right? Things are always not working. And I think it's a lot of like you have to experiment and try things. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But when you don't, it's really about like learning those mistakes. So we've tried many variations of our product. We've made a few different launches, few have worked, few have not worked. And generally the not work, we kind of take a step back and we kind of reflect and we say like, hey, what went wrong here? Sometimes it's like, okay, this should have been like a 2 week prototype and it became like 2 month prototype. And that's the mistake here, right? Like there was a little bit of like interest, like when we started and we talked to a few customers, but like there was not enough interest to spend this much time building. So I think like each case is different, but I do think like obviously like pivoting helps a lot, like people pivot a lot. But I think the general thing that's worked for us over the last like 8 months or a year, maybe a little bit more than that, is kind of it's important to like do the thing that like motivates you enough to keep going forward, right? Like what is like whatever it is, even if it's not the ideal thing to be doing at that point. If like the ideal thing, if you did the ideal thing and you just get burnt out in a month, versus you can do this the thing that you enjoy for longer and you can keep going, you should do the thing that like motivates you.
Cool, cool. You just talked about your team, and I think to me, I think a startup is a bunch of, people who are motivated and who have the same mindset to make this project work. And that's why I think a partner is very important. I'm curious how you kind of select or decide who you want to work with as a team. Like, is there a priority that if you see this in this person, I would like to work with this person? Whereas versus if you see this, it's a red flag. Oh no, I know that I'm not going to be able to work with this person as a partner.
So I think a realistic answer to this question for most people is the number of choices you have for who can be a co-founder or who can be a partner in a project is normally quite limited. I think sometimes the realistic choice is just whoever is there and like whoever you get along with, and whoever is willing to do it. This question is probably more useful in like an early team kind of situation where you can like pick out more than maybe one or two just co-founders, right? So in terms of our early team, we have two people now. We had another person who was with us for like a month and left. And I think what works is be the same person, like be very similar people. Like you need to get along, have very similar interests, like essentially like have the same like motivation towards what you're doing. And I think those are like the important things. We're all kind of like night owls, like nocturnal people, right? Like we start our days in the night, we work throughout the night. Someone we had on for a while was someone who'd wake up at 6 a.m. and sleep at 9 p.m. Nothing wrong with this person. It's just not someone who gels in like your time, or like who internally has that kind of like this one, right?
So it sounds like you're saying it's really hard to find people who have like the similar mindsets physically. Like you met your co-founder in college, but where else can you find people that are entrepreneurs that want to build their stuff? That's why I wanted to build Innected, where I had a hard time finding my first co-founder, Justin. I kind of met like more than 100 people, and then I finally found him, and I was like so happy. But where do you usually meet these people? Is it like all physically through your college, or do you actually now go online, or is there a platform, or where do you find these people that you talk with?
And it happened to me like I was in high school till 10th grade, and there was nobody else who could remember in my class, no one to talk to, no one to go to hackathon with, no one to do interesting things with. Then in the school that I went to for 11th and 12th, I had a full team of 5 people, 5 engineers, really good friends. We worked along the way. We did a bunch of projects. And that was just luck. There was nothing there. Yeah, like I do think communities like what you guys are trying to build with Innected, Pioneer, Discord communities, and like Tech Twitter, it's like great ways to like meet interesting people. The caveat to that is like how do you break into those circles without something like Pioneer?
Well, I mean that's a great answer, because that's what I thought about Innected. We also have a Discord. We have a community that we're building, where anyone who has a mindset or wants to build something, who is interested an entrepreneur can join. And they could talk with people like you, people who are, building their stuff, learn from them, find partners, and then, hang out. Because I really think if you hang out with people who are entrepreneurs, you learn a lot and your mind kind of changes. And as you said, you might be in a place where you weren't even expecting because of this whole community, right? So, yeah, it's great to hear that. That's one of the goals that we have for our project. The other thing that I kind of was curious is that your project or company, Modfy Video, now you have actual customers, right? I'm pretty sure you have ran into problems that you never have anticipated because now you're really getting customers. You're making revenue, right? I'm curious to hear what kind of hurdles that you went through that you were not even expecting because if you don't have a customer, you don't know what's going to happen. But now you have it, and you're actually experiencing it. So I think that really helped a lot of people.
I think what's true is like generally customers and like people using your products tend to do things that you don't really expect anybody to do with the product. They kind of push the boundaries and do different things. Sometimes like you're talking to customers and you're like this one, it's like you don't really agree with the customer, but like the customer is kind of right. Like oh, the customer should always be right. So I think that's like an interesting dilemma to deal with. Is in terms of like you're talking to some customers and they kind of say something that like you don't fully agree with, but you don't want to like really push back on. So like that's an interesting challenge that we're still learning to deal with. And I think everyone's experience, depending on the kind of customers you have and who they are, it's like very different. Right? Like it's very different when you have companies and when you have creators and when you have customers. And like we've tried a few of these segments. We've tried to like pivot a few times. Right? So we did a B2B SKU. Now we're focusing on more creators and like people getting started. Something like YouTube. Like each customer segment behaves very differently, and there's like something interesting about each one. And like
as a founder, I'm curious about how your typical day looks like. But are you also like involved in all like taking care of the customers, taking care of complaints, or are you mostly on the tech where you have a partner who takes care of these issues?
So like currently we are in like the process of like pivoting to the Figma for video kind of thing, right? So in that pivot, it's a lot of like my typical days are mostly engineering. For the most part, it's like I'm a technical founder. My co-founder is a technical founder, and we're not building something deep tech as like a rocket or like a car, but we're building something deep tech in like the software realm, like not a easy SaaS hit kind of product. Right? We're trying to build something quite difficult to build technically. So I do think like probably 60 to 75% of my week is engineering.
And then we just have a final question. We're already like at the final question, but to someone who's watching this podcast, and I'm pretty sure they're struggling, they want to hear from other founders because that's how I was. What would you say to someone that's just put their foot into like this entrepreneurship, starting their company, who's just, at the beginning? What kind of advice, based on your experience, would you, give them?
Like I think a lot of people, including me early on, was trying to like put on this CEO or founder company or startup hat very early. And I wouldn't do that. Like I'm very happy that for the first 4, 5, 6 months or whatever Modfy was before it was even called Modfy, was just a side project. It was just a hack. It was just an indie hacker building a side project, which is open source. If you want from like a business perspective, why that's easier, it's easier to market. People are more receptive to things like that. People like open source. You will be much more welcome around Reddit. But I also think it's much easier. Like you can kind of do what you enjoy, which for most builders, hackers is just building products and generally build for yourself, build for a few friends. And that's a lot more fun early on. And then you can kind of roll that into something that's like bigger. Again, all of this comes with the caveat of like, I'm very early in my journey. So I take all my advice with a grain of salt. But I do think smarter people and more experienced people have said similar things.
I do totally agree that, I think it's really important to find something that you're excited about and, you want to solve something or, at least be a resource. Versus I really agree that, if you start a company wanting to become a CEO, that's, as you see, I see a lot of people saying they want to be an entrepreneur,
but they're not doing anything. They just say that they get education, MB, whatever. But and that's what I like about these interviews. And everyone on my interview said the same thing. It's to me like it's more valuable, or there's much more to learn from someone who's like 14, 15 who built their company versus a professor at Harvard in business school. So, I think what you just shared is really valuable, and I wanted to thank you very much for your time. So, thank you very much for today's interview, Rahul.
Yeah, no problem. It was great chatting, and if this helps anybody, I'm happy to have helped and happy to. So like I hope you guys can like make even more entrepreneurs and more interesting people and like connect more interesting people and give them avenues to like start. There's the sense that a lot of people have, and sometimes that even I had, that like there aren't enough things to build in the world and like everything is already been built. It's not nearly true. We have infinite problems, right? So even for the things that have been solved, you can solve them better. And for things that have not been solved, there's so many things to solve. So it's always more interesting to have many, many more entrepreneurs and many more people doing interesting things.
So, again, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, it was great chat.
Thank you, everyone, for staying until the end of our episode with Rahul Tarak. I hope you had fun and enjoyed the journey of Rahul. Check out our other episodes to hear about the journey of the entrepreneurs we interviewed. Also, if you would like to share ideas and hang around with other entrepreneurs, please get connected on our Discord, where you will find passionate people just like you. So until the next episode, hope you have a good one.